I hope you're feeling jovial because we're going to write some really cool functions using conditionals. All right. Go ahead and open up a new Colab notebook. That's colab.research.google.com and then click on New Notebook. Let's title this one Conditionals. And I want to just go right into functions, okay? So we're going to do several functions using conditionals. So here's a fun one that we can do together. So write a function that basically gives a different output if the user is old enough to vote. Okay. So now if your comments run off like that, by the way, you can't just like put it on a new line. Sometimes I honestly like try to fix them, if I'm doing publishing stuff. I mean, my screen is actually a little large, so if you write it, it probably won't. Write function with different, I'm just showing you guys little things that I sometimes do to clean up my notebook. See, now it's all there and visible. Okay, so what I mean is something like this. First, let's define a function together, okay? So it's going to be def, and it's going to be a voting function. I'll call it voting. And the input's going to be the person's age. Okay, so put in age. And then a colon. Okay, we are going to deliver two different outputs. One if the user is old enough to vote, and one if they are not. All right? So to do that, we need to use conditionals. Right? So when is the user going to be old enough to vote? Well, press return if age is greater than or equal to 18, right? So if age greater than or equal to 18, colon. Yeah, I can make it a little more readable by putting that space in there. So this is one scenario, okay? And basically, we just want to communicate a message saying, like, you're old enough to vote. So I'll call it output. Output will say, you are old enough to vote. But we want a different message if the user is not old enough to vote. Okay, so else, now, when I press return here, this is very interesting. It lines up with output, and that's still in the if clause. You could keep going in that clause and really do a lot right there, if, and then maybe there's a lot of other things to change and do. But you actually want to backspace it, and it goes to the right line up with the if. So if and else should line up, okay? So make sure that you do that. And else is just else. It's all other scenarios, okay? So else, change the output. You are not old enough to vote. Not very interesting, but hey. How about you have to be 18? Maybe that will change one day. I will say, as someone who has students who are under 18 and who are very well educated and intelligent, I think, I don't know. I'm for, like, I personally would be for younger people having the ability to vote. I've heard arguments both ways that, just a thought. Okay, so what next? So I've got two potential different outputs depending on what age is. And if I press return, and again, note that it keeps me inside of the else clause. That's because it's tabbed inside of it. I'm not going to do anything else with it. I just want to go back, and then I want to return the output. Okay, so this should work. Finish up your function. Go ahead and run it by pressing Shift Enter. So now if I put in voting, okay, you can see it's showing that, hey, there's a variable in there, age. And note that it was designed to be a number, right? Because if age greater than or equal to 18, let's do it with a number first. Okay, so let's put in somebody's age. I know I've probably got someone out there who's 12, and press Shift Enter to run it. You have to be 18 to vote. Hopefully there's someone out there who's 18. Always good to check the edge cases, by the way, like 18 instead of 180. You're old enough to vote. Cool. Not fun. Now, I wonder what will happen if we put a string in here. Like, let's see. It gets an error. And the reason why it gets an error is because this line right here, it doesn't know how to interpret the string 100 greater than or equal to 18. I mean, you could include another line here, right? That you could set age equal to, actually, you could just do it in the next line. Make it a little more concise. Let me just show you. You could do age equal to int age. And then so you're casting it as an integer here. So that way, if it came in as a string, it would still work. So let's try that. I think it's cool to kind of test functions and push them, because this is how you're going to modify them and make them better. You don't actually want to write functions that are easy to break. You want them to be hard to break. And casting, what you're doing here, is one way to do that. I've got to press Shift Enter to run it again. Now I'm just interested in this one. Let's see if this one works now. You are old enough to vote, right? Because it's been cast as an integer. And possibly, well, that was more important, but importantly, we need that because input is going to use strings. So let's now make a modification of this function with the following. So I'm going to add some more instructions here for us. Okay. Write voting function with multiple outputs depending on age. And specifically, we want to use the input function to obtain user's age. So this time, instead of like, right, what's the difference? The difference is how programs work, right? Because if you're giving a program to someone, you need to get that information from them. You want something like the input function. If you're just testing things and doing it on your own, it's fine not to use it. Okay? So, but let's go ahead and make it interactive, right? It's more fun. You can share it with other people. Interactive functions are awesome. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a minute to get a head start on this. All right? And then I'll jump in pretty quickly. A lot of it should be similar. In fact, if you want to like strategy, we could copy and paste it and modify it. You know, because we know this one works. I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I can't like... I need to fix my trackpad. Okay, if you do Command A inside of a cell, it actually copies everything. I'm going to try that. Oops. I forgot to hit Command C. So here we go again. Command A, select all, Command C, copy all, come down here, Command V, and get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to go through and start to make some changes now. First of all, we're not collecting the age. We're going to get it from the user, right? So we need the input function. So age equals input. How old are you? Now, the user is going to write something in there, but it's going to be a string, even though they're putting in a number. So this next line is great, which is recasting it. Now, I want to do multiple outputs, more than 2. So I'm going to add another one. Okay. And the idea here is to use if and else if. It's not really, hey, do it my way. It's more like, hey, can you come up with another fun divisor? So there are 3 levels to it instead of 2. Like if age is greater than or equal to 100, you know, say something fun. How about output equals glad you're finally voting. Finally, I think this was the idea that someone's checking to see if they can vote, meaning they don't know if they can vote. I don't know. Okay, and the thing is, it's got to be if and else if. Okay, so that has to be changed to an else if, right? All right, so let me go over this because it's got multiple parts to it. So first of all, we're just defining a function, but we're not using an input because we're going to get user input. So inside of the function, we define the user input to the question, how old are you, as the variable age. Okay. Next line, we cast it as an integer so that we can use it in greater than or less than statements. Now we go through an if else clause, setting up some different scenarios. So if age is greater than 100, outputs, glad you are voting. These are kind of fun to write. You can come up with anything here. You could do another one if you want to have more fun with it, like an elif age greater than or equal to, I don't know, 21. And then you need the colon and then return another output. Output equals your vote matters. Okay. So here we have now 4 different possible outputs depending on what the input is. And what the function is going to do is going to check them in order, top to bottom, and stop after it, gets one that works. Okay. And then it'll go to this last line and return the output. Okay. Let's go ahead and run it. Shift enter. And try it. So voting. I could call it something more descriptive, but for now, just leave voting. Again, note this time it doesn't have any input. Okay, so run your function. How old are you? Well, now I can put in anything, right? You could wonder, like you could just try fun stuff like, hey, what if I say I'm -3? Will it break? What will it do? What do you think it will do too is also interesting. Can you go in and like check out the code and see what it'll do? Oh, you have to be 18 to vote, right? I mean, it works because it's a number and it goes through all the numbers and it checks, and it's not greater than or equal to 100, not greater than or equal to 21, not greater, I just did that for consistency, not greater than or equal to 18. So you get the last one. It's simply an else case. Okay. What else could you do? You could pick any number. We'll just do one more. Let's say I am 77. What do I get? Your vote matters. Yay. Okay, so there's a fun little voting function using both input and conditionals and even nested conditionals. Job well done.